Hello, everybody, and welcome to the new episode of the Playlist Shuffle podcast. My name is Jay Malley. What's going on, everybody? Hope y'all been having a great holiday so far. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all the good stuff. Uh, we have a new Premiere Lounge talk session with a hip hop artist. He has a couple of albums out as we speak today, and he is now promoting his new album. His new album called "Deliver Us from Evil." And right now we have the artist right now, Dev the Follower. He's going to talk about his new album and many other things music related. So, Dev, how you doing, man? And what's going on, brother?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, man?
All right, all right. I want to thank you for hopping on to the Playlist Shuffle podcast. It's truly an honor to have you on. I just want to share that I found this guy at a film festival. He was showing his music video at a film festival, BBR Indie Film. Shout out to Butterby Rocka. And you also went to Full Sail University, right?
Yeah, that's correct, man.
Exactly. That's how we kind of connected from there, and we shared our contact information, and I listened to his music. It was some very deep stuff in terms of like mental health and society issues and all that stuff that he's going to talk about. So, without further ado, let's get to know more about Dev. So, tell us about who you are, where you come from, and what has gotten you interested into the hip hop realm.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I grew up in north central Pennsylvania, a bit of a rural area, so not much to do. Creativity was a little absent there, so I found myself gravitating more towards sports and athletics and stuff, and I still really enjoy watching and participating and being healthy. But I wrestled for 17 years, dedicated my life to the sport. Ultimately, my main goal was to wrestle in the Olympics, but due to a lot of injuries that resulted in surgical procedures, fell out of love for the sport, and I ultimately had to find something to fill that void, right? So that was music. Music was just that for me. I fell in love with hip-hop. I love a lot of other genres as well, but hip-hop spoke to me. I felt like a personal resonance to lyricism. I've always written my whole life, poetry, short stories and stuff like that. I felt like that I'd be able to contribute to hip-hop more so than any other genre, especially because I'm still working on my singing and melodies. I just felt like I was a perfect fit in hip-hop.
Nice, and I didn't even know you was a wrestler. Like that's crazy. That's really nice to know. What got you interested into wrestling? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no worries at all. Pennsylvania is a huge wrestling state, so more likely than not, if you grow up in Pennsylvania, you're at least going to try the sport. So I mean, I've wrestled since I was 4 or 5 years old. I loved it and just continued to do it. Fell in love with the sport. It was super challenging, and I myself, I gravitate towards challenge and just being able to push myself to the greatest level. So that's where I was at with wrestling. Wrestled throughout high school, a couple years in college, but like I said before, due to injuries, fell out of love for the sport. I still support it and watch it, but just doing it wasn't in my future anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, so like what's crazy is that at the time I was living in Virginia. We just moved down there, and I started middle school, and I remember seeing that sign-up sheet to try out for wrestling. And I was pretty interested at the point in time, but the thing was, because I was so new, like I was so pretty timid, so I just like decided not to do it. I kind of regret it because I loved going to the wrestling matches and seeing that, but man, I just moving down there to a small town from New York, being a big city guy, as I don't know what it was. I was just so timid, and I just didn't sign up for it. Ultimately, I just became a soccer manager in my later years in high school. So, but that's great that you're a wrestler and wanted to do the Olympics. I'm sorry you didn't get there because of injuries. I've seen some gruesome like injuries back in high school, and just couldn't imagine, man.
Yeah, it's all good, man. I mean, everything happens for a reason. If I continued wrestling, a lot of things probably wouldn't have fell into place for me. I wouldn't have met you at that film festival, that's for sure. I would have never met people that introduced me to my now fiance. So everything works out, and I'm glad that the things that did happen happened. So
Very nice. So now, in terms of hip hop, what is it like specifically like about the art of hip hop that just captivated you, and like who are the rappers that inspired you a lot to dive in this?
yeah, so growing up North Central Pennsylvania, when I did discover hip hop, it was a lot of artists from upstate New York and New York City. So I really grew up on Nas, Wu-Tang Clan, Biggie, and then I branched out to Tupac and other artists that greatly influenced my music. What I like most about all of it is just the energy that it brings. You just get a sense of empowerment when you listen to it, and then when you delve into artists who care more about the craft, lyricism, punchlines, it just makes you feel a certain type of way. Just like fans of people who like metal music, that makes you feel a certain type of way. You feel empowered when you're listening to it. That's just how I felt
Mhm.
growing up on hip hop, and specific artists who cared a lot more about songwriting, lyricism, substance, and emotional content within the music. So
Yeah, so I hear your music, and like I mentioned in the beginning, talking about mental health and societal issues. Uh, how do you see or hear about those things and then put it into some poetic art? Like how does that work?
it's a really good question. I feel like it'd be difficult to try and pinpoint an exact strategy to do so. But like I referenced earlier, I grew up writing short stories and poetry, so I feel like from the start I've been pretty talented and skilled being able to concisely portray words in a certain way that just hits right away, and being able to weave in and out your writing in accordance to what you want the delivery to sound like. Make sure it's cohesive and blends with the beat well. So, what I usually do when I start to write my music is I gather what production I want to use. If I'm feeling that production, I'll start mumbling a little bit what type of flows and cadence I want within the structure of the song, and then I'll start to piece the words together and figure out what I want to say, what type of rhyme schemes I want to have. And it's really just putting pieces together like a puzzle in my head. That's the best way to explain it.
Very nice. So you pretty much like writing short stories and poetry. You know, would you say that you pretty much like ahead of the game? Basically, you don't really have to overthink. It just flowed naturally. Would you say?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. I feel like 60% of the songs that I have now are more poetry than not. So if you read away and you just read the lyrics, you could probably read it like it's poetry.
Nice. So talk about when you came out with your first album. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I was just experimenting. I didn't really know too much about what I was doing. I just know that I wanted to put something out for people to hear. Um, the majority of the stuff that I've released up until the last few years is definitely muddy, and I mean every artist starts somewhere. But I just knew I wanted to get started. I wanted to get my foot in the door and make sure people knew to take me seriously. I worked with a couple of artists. It was my way of networking with people that I didn't know, and that was a good experience for me as well. Meeting new people, meeting new artists, and being able to just collaborate with people, it allowed me to learn a lot about the industry and how to work with others.
Nice. Okay. So working your way towards this recent album that you have now, what was the motivating factor of like, okay, I'm here to stay in music? Like, was it your first album, or what other factors was it?
I guess a lot of the feedback that I was receiving, I mean, I've been making music seriously since about 2017, and the feedback that I've received historically throughout my career is it just doesn't sound professional enough. It doesn't sound like you could just throw me on the radio or throw me in someone's headphones and they'll add me to the playlist. So I wanted something that would really stamp my career and me as an artist into the history books. I worked on the writing for this album for 4 years, really paid attention to what I wanted it to sound like, how I wanted it to feel when people started listening to it, and obviously what I wanted to portray lyrically, emotionally, mentally. So really just, I mean, feeling like getting a sense that I'm an underdog, that would absolutely drive and put a fire in my ass about really taking this album seriously, making sure that people understand that I'm a contender in the game.
Nice, love that. I love that a lot. So, okay, so now you have this new album, and you said you recently released this a couple weeks ago, correct?
Yeah, November 29th.
November 29th. Okay, so congratulations on that.
I appreciate it.
Talk about the inspiration behind this album and the process that went into this, the overall production.
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew I wanted to create something more conceptual, more thematic, just front to back, having an ongoing theme rather than just random songs being thrown onto a tape and calling it an album. I've done that my whole career. I wanted to do something different. So I came up with the idea. I really looked at the world from a bird's eye view. I observed a whole lot over the past few years, and I really gathered information and recognized emotions that I felt internally about certain subjects and topics that really frustrated me. And I also observed in retrospection about my own personal life too. So I really just gathered a conglomerate of all of those things, put it into an album creatively, and I really think that it's just a stamp in history, in my opinion, for my career. I just wanted to create a full body of work that I'm really proud of, something that I'm not afraid to push, something that I'm confident that I could show anybody I talk to and they'll enjoy it. And ultimately, that's what this is.
Nice. Okay, so how have you gone about like promoting it or marketing about it? Because it is on Spotify, and what other ways that people can access this, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely. On all streaming platforms. You could also purchase it on iTunes. I do plan on releasing physical copies, CDs, vinyls, merchandise to go with it as well. But as far as promotion, I think as an artist and all artists alike can relate, it's definitely the hardest part. It's the majority of it. While I spent 4+ years creating the album, that's one thing. Promoting, advertising, marketing is an entirely different beast that takes up the majority of the effort. So what I've been focusing on is short form content creation, still trying to experiment with that, figure out what the sweet spot is. So right now I've been doing short form content under a minute, like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds is usually what I've been doing on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. And then aside from that, I am working on a film to go along film in partnership with a videographer and photographer, Cole Bushy, that I mentioned previously before. So once that's done, we'll be throwing that on YouTube and seeing where that takes us. We'll chop it up and throw that on all social media platforms as well. And then throughout the next year, focusing a lot on creating pretty creative music videos, making more music, and focusing more on singles and content creation for that too.
Okay. And shout out to everybody involved in this project. I know you mentioned the names in the messages, so shout out to them. I got to see their work and their talent. So definitely, I say you've got some talent on this album. So again, congratulations on that, and job well done. I would say job well done with this album.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Yeah, shout out to everybody involved. Aaron O'Connor, he was the audio engineer for this. He really allowed me to elevate the sound and the atmosphere for the album, so huge props to him. My sister Jelena, she's a single. She provided some background vocals on it. Kobushi, videographer, photographer. VK, one of the main producers, as well as other producers. And then just a few other background vocals that were provided, some from a choir that I hired too. So shout out to everybody involved. Really allowed it to come full circle, and I appreciate everybody.
Absolutely. So in the times that we're in, and this may be like a broad, heavy question here, but you know, I respect artists who wants to address like things like societal issues and struggle and self-reflection and mental health. I think it's very important that art addresses these things. So in the years to come, like how impactful do you see your art as far as impacting um, whether it's your fans or just people overall?
Sure, that's the main goal, right? For me, and especially as of recently, I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact on the world. I want people to listen to my music and be able to change their lives or save lives or make a difference within society as a or as a whole. So I really see myself being able to help people individually spread positivity, but also talk about things that a lot of people are afraid of talking about. I grew up not being afraid to talk about anything, not holding my tongue at all. And while it's gotten me in trouble a few times, while I've matured throughout the years, I've really been able to hone in on that and talk about things importantly with no filter. So I think that aspect and of my personality is really going to take my music far, probably with a specific audience and specific niche. It's still going to make a difference. If I can help one person, if I could save one person's life and impact others, then I've done my job.
Absolutely, and that's respect because I'm pretty like down to earth kind of person. A lot of things I don't sugarcoat it, and maybe down to a fault, but I always feel that it's necessary for people to hear, something real and something authentic because that could go a long way. And it's one of the things why I love hip hop because it's so like down to earth. You have hip hop artists that are like so down to earth, like J. Cole or even Kendrick. I totally gravitate towards those guys because they come out with some of the most realist stuff as far as lyrics go. So I truly appreciate that. For an artist of your mindset, that's something that I think would be truly appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And as long as I'm able to be unapologetically myself, then I'm happy.
So I'm curious to ask, when the pandemic happened, and then that was, it's one of our worst times in this modern days. Was there anything that artistically inspired you to make anything? Like, how did you take the time to get through COVID?
Great question. Yeah, I was still enrolled at Full Sail actually, so we had to first and foremost figure out how to transition from on campus to online for the last couple of months in the undergraduate program. What I did is I focused on studying outside of academics. So I studied the game. I really delved into a lot of people's catalogs. I took a lot of time to study, be able to be familiar with a lot of different things, a lot of different artists, and improve my pen game and my craft as well. Specifically intrigued me or motivated me to make anything creatively specifically at that time, but it just allowed me to further improve on my skill in writing.
When did you graduate Full Sail?
I graduated my undergrad in 2020, and then I did the online master's program in the next 12 months.
Gotcha. Because my class, we graduated out of the master's film program literally just before COVID came. So this was like the end of 2019.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, I started November 2019, I believe it was. Or no, November 2018. That's when I started.
Okay. So yeah, so I think our graduation was September 2019. So the COVID was never a thing just yet. So that's crazy to hear about. So, and I just remember I tell my guests a lot, like COVID was a little bit harder on the artists, especially independent artists, because I saw like some of my friends who I went to my bachelor's at Catawba College, they were doing live concerts on like Instagram Live, Facebook Live, asking for donations because they couldn't get any gigs and because the country was shut down basically. So I thought that was like that really brought to my attention and kind of inspired me to be on this journey to be, music supervisor and be in sync because I want to help independent artists as much as I can. So, did you do any of those like online live concerts?
I actually didn't. I only went on live a few times with a producer friend of mine, VK. But aside from that, we didn't really focus too much on anything like that. We just focused on making the music. I made a move shortly after that, so I moved to Indiana with my fiance shortly afterwards, and still just putting pieces to the puzzle together and figuring out what I was doing.
Okay. As far as, because I did mention sync, did you have any goals of having your music sync on like any visual project, like a film or TV show?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, as a businessman, entrepreneur, I would love to expand and get my feet wet with anything that I possibly can. And NSYNC would be a huge goal of mine. If I can get involved in anything regarding film or even anything outside of that, that'd be fantastic.
I'm curious to ask, is there like any scenarios that you think, whether you're like in the middle of creating your songs or just like after you release it, do you just think about like what scenario you can hear your music playing over?
Very briefly, but prior to meeting Matt Steele, and then when I had conversations with him, as you know, it obviously sparks a whole different mindset. So really, I started to focus on the thought process with that after this release.
Okay, because interesting enough, because I don't tell a lot of people this, so I probably need to. But I wrote a novel when I was like in high school, and a lot of times I would listen to music, like soundtracks, that inspired me to make the stories and brainstorm chapters and all that stuff. And back then, I was just free writing it. I didn't have like the knowledge of storytelling like I did in the film master's program. I was just writing it. But at the same time, I was just blasting the music, either the scoring or anything like with lyrics that are like so deep. And it kind of just like helped me through the process. And next thing you know, I got it done and I've got it published and all that stuff. So I was just pretty curious of like when an artist produces music and part of the goal is to get it licensed or get it like a sync placement out of it. I was wondering if there was like any sort of like a scenario or maybe like a film that inspired like some of the lyrics or production of the film overall.
Sure. Yeah, sure. It's a good question. I'm not sure that I necessarily thought about that specifically, but after creating, I can definitely hear some of my pieces being played in shows or movies. I do reference a lot of pop culture within lyrics too, naturally, just because I'm fairly knowledgeable about things, and I've become a fan of anime and other movies and comic books, other artists, athletes. So anytime that I can reference anything within pop culture, I'll do it.
Absolutely. Would you have an idea like on the spot if like say for any song for your new album, could you think of like a project or like a film that you can have a song placed in at the top of your head?
I think the records Photosynthesis, Dear God, and Pale White Horse would do well in a variety of different genres. It could be like superhero, lawsuit, or law enforcement, more cinema-driven type of films or series or movies or whatever. I think they would do well in, because they have a more cinematic production. They're energetic. They sample more authentic like Japanese instruments. So like, even anime, I could see Photosynthesis being in maybe.
That's funny you say those songs, because literally when I was listening to it, those are literally the exact songs that I thought I was like, oh yeah, I can see that being played somewhere on the big screen or somewhere. Or even an anime. I always loved the Boondocks, so I can definitely see like something like on the Boondocks for sure, especially 100%. After like Photosynthesis.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So, as someone who's been, continuing on in the music industry as an artist, based on your perspective, what would you say or what advice would you give to other artists who are just as hungry and they're trying to have goals to fulfill? Like, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I love that question. Be consistent, be authentic, genuine, give people a reason to want to support you. You have to be relatable. You have to be someone that they know that they could trust. If they can't relate to you or know that you're a trustworthy person, then they're going to be less inclined to want to support you. But be consistent, feed your fans, give them what they want, but also first and foremost, become a fan of yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you don't like what you're making, then you're really not going to enjoy it. And the likelihood of someone else liking something that you don't like is less likely as well.
I like that. And the reason why I ask you this question, because I feel like this question isn't solely for like the professionals who have like established themselves and all that stuff. I think some of the most like effective um, advice, and this isn't knocking on anybody who's established themselves and fulfill their goals, or whatnot, but I feel like some of the most authentic and effective advice do come from those who are, just as hungry. They're grinding and, trying to fulfill their goals. They're hustling just to, get to where they want to go. And even me, like, I try to help as much. I'm not established music supervisor. I got one project under my belt, but I've always do all I can to learn and adapt and evolve my skill set. And this is why I created this platform in the first place, to let it be an open space for those who are established and also for those who are hustling and, trying to fulfill their goals, because you never know who needs it, who needs this kind of like advice, who needs these words in order to get through it. Because I know like people are still trying to recover from like the pandemic, and they even trying to come to me for advice because they see what I've been doing, what I've been learning. So I try to give them the best advice as I can, but yours definitely gives a lot of value for sure.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And that's a good point you made, because times change all the time. The pandemic was extremely unexpected, and we saw this even outside of pop culture, creative media, music, and entertainment specifically. We saw it with small businesses and corporations. And I think it was just a good example. While a lot of horrible things happened throughout the time, and not to get too dreary or anything, and a lot of people died, but what we noticed and what I've observed is people that were unwilling to adapt to the changes, they ultimately failed. Their businesses collapsed and they weren't able to recover afterwards. So that's extremely important. You have to be willing to learn each and every day, learn from other people's mistakes, and be willing to adapt to anything.
Exactly. And just to get off from like the music topic, like I watch a lot of Bar Rescue. I don't know if you watch that show, but
No, I don't.
It's actually one of those reality shows that I like, because it's very informative. And though I don't see myself as like a restaurant owner, you learn a lot of things, but just by like owning a business in general and what to look out for. But as far as like the restaurant business in itself, they've been showing episodes of like during or post the pandemic and seeing how the restaurant industry heavily got impacted by the pandemic. And still, the host John Taffer, he's still going out there and doing all he can to help these bars and restaurants recover. And so it's so crazy that it's been like 5 years when it's like the whole chaos like happened. And it's just so crazy as to how things can just collapse just like that, and you have to do everything that you can to recover, like you said. And so when you think about the creatives, the creativity part of it, being an artist or indulging in music, film, or whatever, nowadays like film studios, they have to have like a medical department now to make sure that everybody's is safe and clean, and while they're on set. So it's crazy how just one thing can impact the whole industry for years.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, but it's necessary to adapt and adjust to everything. Without adjusting, like I said before, you're more likely to fail, and it's more than likely going to happen sooner than later too. But yeah, I think things have changed. Things are still changing. People need to adjust. That's just the name of the game. If you're unwilling to do that, then maybe it's just not right for you.
Exactly. What would you say? Do you have any particular song in "Deliver Us from Evil" that you're most proud of, or is there a song that has like impacted you like emotionally when you go back to listen to it?
Yeah, there's two songs that come to the top of mind. They're very deep, dark. I had to really reach in pretty deep into my soul to be able to write these, but "Tomorrow's a New Day" is one of them, which, to summarize, is a fictional story about somebody going through addiction and battling demons within their head, whether or not they should deal, or how they should deal with suicidal thoughts. And then the other one is "Why I'm Human." Both songs, by the way, produced by VK. Extremely haunting, deep production that's phenomenal. So shout out to VK. He did a brilliant job with those. But "Why I'm Human," that talks a little bit more about mental health, addiction, relying on faith to grow within myself, keep pushing forward, and then utilizing all that energy and what you've learned from self-growth and project it onto other things that you care deeply about. And I call out things such as human trafficking and other societal issues in the third verse.
Nice. As far as the mental health thing, or the mental health subject, I created an episode on this podcast, and where I was talking about Stranger Things season 4, and I was interpreting, because most of my episodes I'm just interpreting film music. It ain't really facts based; it's just opinionated.
Sure.
But I saw that, or what I got out of that sing placement of "Running Up That Hill" by Kate Bush was that song was used as like a sort of like a mental health awareness, because the character, was it Max? I think that was her name is.
Yep.
She was going through it because spoiler for like years ago, but I think she lost her brother in the last season, and so she's kind of going through that like survivor's guilt or something like that, and the villain is sort of like a symbolic image of I guess mental health per se, but she always uses that song "Running Up the Hill" to escape reality in a way. But you saw that she's really going through it, and so something like that I think is like really dope, sort of like technique to address some really heavy topics like that. So
Yeah,
I'm sure with your song, it will really go like a long way for a visual project for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. And brilliant song choice. Shout out Stranger Things and Kate Bush. Also, a little later in the same season too, with the utilization of Metallica and the guitar solo. I think, what's his name, Eddie, I think it is. That was brilliant too.
That was crazy in itself, because I couldn't believe what I was watching, because I don't know if he actually played it himself, the character.
He did. I saw interviews of him talking about it later. He spent months and months and months learning it. So yeah, he played it.
Oh man, that's what I thought. I saw an interview or some. I thought I heard someone say like he actually played it and he learned it. But oh man, that was so crazy. But yeah, both those songs, great sing placements. Nora Felder, the music supervisor, I believe at best she was nominated. I'm pretty sure she may have won an Emmy. I could be wrong, but I know she was definitely nominated for that. She was one of my inspirations to be on this music supervision journey in the first place. Because of Stranger Things, I think season 2, when I heard the Neutron Dance came on, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I want to do this.
Yeah, brilliant.
So any other projects that you have currently cooking? I don't want you to explain the detail if you don't want to, but you got any other inspirations or any other projects in the works?
Yeah, I'm always working on stuff. I really never put a halt to anything. I'm open to everything, but we're working on finishing the short film and a lot of other cinematic type of short form content for social media. We're going to be pushing this album for a really long time, but simultaneously, I'm just going to focus on working on a bunch of singles, really catchy, hard-hitting songs that I can capture a wider, broad audience to bring them to the album. So that's my attempt with the singles, because ultimately I want to gather that fan base and then show them what's really important. So that's what I'll be focusing on here in the next year or so. But like I said, I'm open to anything. I would love to work on films, whether it's writing, directing, musically, anything. I would love it.
For your films, do you place your songs in your film?
Yeah, so really good question. Not to go into too much detail, but I partnered with a videographer and photographer, Cole Bushy, where I lived. My fiance and I just recently moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but we lived in Lafayette, Indiana, and that's where we partnered. We got all the filming done. It's just a matter of post-production now. But a couple of years ago, Cole and I sat down and decided that we were going to turn the album into a short film. So what we did is we laid out all of the music front to back, and we wrote chapters in accordance to each of the songs. And then we created a storyline and ultimately executed a short story in regard to what we wanted to portray musically and symbolically through the music.
Nice. A few more questions I got. Do you have any future collaborators that you are hoping to work with in the future?
Really good question. I guess I'd be open to anybody. It'd be a dream of mine to work with some of the people that I've looked up to my entire life. Favorite rappers, Nas. I'd love to work with anybody from Wu-Tang Clan, but Method Man, Redman specifically, Eminem. I would love to work with anybody that I look up to. Lil Wayne, Kendrick, J. Cole. That'd be pretty cool.
Well, if you collaborate with Nas, because we both from Queens, so Nas has always been my favorite rapper growing up. So if you get a collaboration with Nas, hey, I'll be rooting for you like 100,000%.
I appreciate that, bro. I'll make sure you're there for it. But yeah, Nas is my favorite. I was bumping Illmatic when I was in high school, when I wasn't even supposed to be listening to rap. So
yeah, that was always like that growing up. You ever heard the band The Herbalizer?
They sound familiar, but I'm not knowledgeable too much at all.
They were signed with Ninja Tune, and I think how I discovered them was playing video games. Definitely NBA Street Volume 1. I really, truly fell in love with the Herbalizer. When you get a chance, like check them out. And DJ Food and what Jean Grey.
Gotcha. Are they from New York too?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think so. Or I think some of them might be. I know one of the rappers they collaborate with, Blade. I think he's from the UK, if I'm not mistaken. So
Gotcha.
Some of them might be New York based, or some of them might be UK based. I think it depends.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of A Tribe Called Quest too. So.
Hey.
Yeah, awesome. I do want to put you onto an artist. You got my wheels turned into my head. I discovered him like a few weeks ago on TikTok. Like it was literally random. Dude had less than 1,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. He's grown really quickly based on TikTok. But he's like super reminiscent of like Big L and old school Wu-Tang Clan. His name's Sci-Fi the Mastermind, I believe.
Sci-Fi the Mastermind. Got it.
I think his album's called Armageddon or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, check that out. It's super refreshing. Super refreshing.
Gotcha. Okay. Couple more questions. Because now you're just gonna have me like request, like telling you a whole bunch of more artists. But what was the inspiration behind the cover art for your album?
Yeah, so I think it was a good symbol of people being mistreated in society. So that's why I had my fiance do the makeup art for that, do the cuts on the eyebrow, on the cheek, and the black eye, and then the other half is the American flag. So I wanted to symbolize a beaten, broken, law-abiding citizen at the hand of who is at fault. And don't get me wrong, I love the country. I love everything about it. We have tremendous amount of freedom and everything, but the system is definitely breaking people, and hopefully we're headed towards the right direction. But that's just what I wanted to symbolize.
Gotcha, because I recognized the like the bruised eye, and I was like, is that a bruised eye? And so that really caught my attention. So the way you explained that, it all makes sense. So, but I love the cover art, especially when with the flag, the one picture with the flag, and everything else is black and white. The flag is in color.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Cole and I ideated that. We executed through a couple of photo shoots, and then shout out to the fiance for doing the makeup art for that.
Shout out. Okay, so as we get to the conclusion of this episode, again, thank you again, Dev, for coming on to the Playlist Shuffle podcast and promoting your new album. Everybody, please go check it out. Please do. Like he said, it's available on streaming platforms. So please go check him out. Where can they find you on what social media platforms as well?
Yeah, at Dev the Follower. That's my handle for pretty much anything, and all the preferred digital streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, iTunes, whatever you want to list me on, I'll be on. It's an honor and a privilege, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I always got to look out for a fellow Full Sail alumni.
That's right, man.
Okay, so my last question for you is, and I always love to ask people this question: if you were to create your own life soundtrack, what element would you include, and what point of your life would you like to emphasize? This could be goals, your trials, or just your personality.
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that my latest album, Deliver Us from Evil, is exactly that up until this point in time. But moving forward, I would obviously try to top that and just create better bodies of music. But I think moving forward, I want to be even more cinematic than I have been. I want to incorporate more traditional instruments like the violin, the mandolin, stuff like that. Just being able to bring it more full, captivating, and just incorporate elements that you don't normally hear in hip hop.
Absolutely, that sounds really dope. I love how when hip hop can adapt its sound to where it's it could be so unique. I love that part of hip hop. I'm starting to hear that more and more now, especially when it's becoming a little more epic at times. Sometimes it just hits really well.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And that was the whole idea of getting the choir on the song Dear God too. I recorded the hook, recorded the verse, and I just felt like it felt a little flat. So I had the idea, I was like, this is the perfect song to do it. So I reached out to a small independent choir, and they got it back to me in a couple weeks, and they just elevated it to a level that I didn't even expect. So super grateful for that, and I'm glad the idea came into fruition.
That's awesome that you got an authentic choir, and that you managed to get that, because it really sounded really good. It truly sounded good. And I like that touch that you put on there.
Appreciate it.
For me, for my soundtrack, I've been listening to a lot of, and you'll see this on my podcast, but a lot of Attack on Titan music. And I always love to just think about blending that sound to my life soundtrack, not to make it dark or anything, but just the creative sounds that the composer puts in his tracks. Some of the blend of electronic and authentic orchestral sounds, and just a unique blend that he puts in. I always love having that, or thinking about putting that together in my own soundtrack. Some of the electronic noises, and then mixing it with piano and the guitar and the drums, the drum kit. Oh man, words cannot describe enough just how much I love hearing all that stuff come together.
It just elevates everything. It's a whole atmosphere in itself. Attack on Titan is its own beast. That show is phenomenal. Everything about it.
Don't get me started. We'll be here for another 2 hours.
I know it, bro. I know it.
Oh man. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes another Premier Lounge talk of the Playlist Shuffle podcast. Please check out Dev the Follower. He is a great hip hop artist. Please go check out Deliver Us from Evil. It is a great listen to, and check out all of his other works as well. Please like, share, subscribe this video. We are on YouTube. We are on Instagram, even on TikTok. We're trying to get our TikTok page going. We have a link tree that's in the bio of our Instagram, so if you please check that out and check out all of our links that we have on there, and check out all of our other Premier Lounge Talks episodes. And we're going to be uploading more of the interpretations on our YouTube page. Those videos are coming, I promise you. But again, thank you, Dev the Follower, for coming on here and expressing yourself and explaining your art. And shout out to everybody involved in the making of this album, and congratulations, huge congratulations, and good luck on however far you're going to put this album as far as goals, and good luck to your next project. Really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. I'm very grateful. It's an honor and a privilege.
Absolutely. And everyone, please have a safe and fun holidays, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.